Hello, dear learners. Welcome to our channel, where we bring you exciting stories to help you improve your English. Today, we have a truly inspiring story, the life of Steve Jobs. Through this story, you will learn new words, phrases, and expressions while discovering how one man changed the world of technology. So stay with us till the end, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing stories. Let's begin. Some people don't just live life. They shape the future. They challenge the impossible, and doing so, they change the world. This is the story of a man who turned dreams into reality. A man who redefined technology, business, and innovation. His name? Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs was born on February 24, 1955, in San Francisco, California. He was adopted by Paul and Clara Jobs, a working-class couple who raised him in Silicon Valley. His biological parents, Joanne Schiebel and Abdul Fattah Jandali, were university students who gave him up for adoption. Jobs grew up in Mountain View, California, an area that would later become Silicon Valley. From a young age, Steve was different. He was curious, restless, and always asking questions. Steve's father introduced him to electronics, and soon their garage became his playground. While other kids played sports, Steve was busy taking apart radios and televisions, fascinated by how they worked. In 1972, he joined Reed College, but dropped out after just 6 months. Yet he continued learning, taking classes in calligraphy and design. At the time, it seemed like a waste, but years later, it would shape the Macintosh computer. Steve was brilliant but rebellious. He often got bored in class and played pranks on teachers. He had a thirst for knowledge, but traditional education, it didn't excite him. Jobs traveled to India with a friend, Daniel Kotke, in search of spiritual enlightenment. He stayed in India for several months, shaved his head, and practiced Zen Buddhism. He later incorporated many Zen principles, such as simplicity and minimalism, into Apple's product designs. In 1971, Steve Jobs met Steve Wozniak, a computer genius. The two became close friends, united by their love of electronics. Years later, in 1976, they decided to start their own company, Inside a Garage. Their first product, the Apple I computer, was hand-built by Wozniak. It was a simple circuit board, but it laid the foundation for the company's future. In 1977, Apple released the Apple II, which became one of the first mass-market personal computers. It was a huge success, making Apple a major player in the tech industry. In 1980, Apple went public, making Jobs a multimillionaire at just 25 years old, and Steve Jobs was one of the most famous young entrepreneurs in the world. In 1984, Jobs unveiled the Macintosh, a computer with a mouse and graphical interface, something the world had never seen before. It was a revolution, but behind the scenes, things were falling apart. Steve was brilliant but difficult. His relentless perfectionism caused conflicts with Apple's leadership. And then, the unthinkable happened. At just 30 years old, Steve Jobs was fired from the company he built. For most, this would be the end. But for Steve Jobs, it was a new beginning. He started Next, a company that built powerful, futuristic computers. The machines didn't sell much, but their technology? It would later be Apple's secret weapon. At the same time, Steve made a bold move. He bought a small animation studio called Pixar. In 1995, Pixar released Toy Story, the first ever 3D animated film. It became a massive hit, making Jobs a billionaire. Pixar became a billion-dollar company, and Jobs, he was back on top. Meanwhile, Apple was dying. The company was losing money, and people had lost faith. In 1997, Apple made a desperate move. They brought Steve Jobs back. Jobs wasted no time. He cut unnecessary projects, redesigned Apple's image, and then he unveiled the iMac. This was the greatest comeback in business history. It was just the beginning. In 2001, Jobs introduced the iPod, a device that put 1,000 songs in your pocket. It changed the way people listened to music. Then, in 2007, Steve Jobs introduced something that would change the world forever: the iPhone, a device that would ultimately redefine the entire mobile industry. The iPhone redefined technology, making Apple the most valuable company on the planet. And then, the iPad. The iPad, introduced by Steve Jobs on January 27, 2010, was one of Apple's most significant innovations. It was a revolutionary tablet computer that aimed to bridge the gap between smartphones and laptops. Although tablets had existed before, the iPad was the first to succeed on a large scale, thanks to Apple's expertise in design, hardware, and software integration. In 2003, Jobs was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. Despite his illness, he continued working until his final days. On October 5, 2011, the world lost a genius. But his legacy remains in every Apple device, in every innovation, and in the way we interact with technology today, because in the end, it's the ones who are crazy enough to think they can change the world who actually do. Steve Jobs was more than just a businessman. He was a dreamer, a creator, a visionary. He taught us to think differently, to challenge the impossible. And so, to all the dreamers watching this, never stop believing in your vision. If this story inspired you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more incredible life stories. See you in the next video.